welcome to In ShawScope, the monthly podcast where myself, Mr.
Clive Davis,
and Mr.
Nicholas Sheehan.
Oh, seamless. Each look at more or less chronologically as much of the filmography of the Shaw brothers as we possibly can. It's a bit of a challenge, but we're having fun. And we don't know a lot about these films, but we're slinging ourselves into it. This month we have reached 1959.
Yes, we're a bit late as well. Sorry, we're a bit late this month.
Yeah, but we know you're a patient bunch, so it's all right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or
so what?
Alternatively, don't give a fuck as well.
Yeah, or just don't listen.
Yeah.
Which is the majority of the
the human race, I think.
The human race,
so.
as well as probably the people who are interested in Shaw Brothers films.
And even people on other planets don't even listen to us.
Fucking rude is what I say.
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, so where are we up to? Where are we up to tonight, then, gents?
Oh well, as you said, 59, right? And we've got a 59 double bill. What might they be then, Nicholas?
Well, put me on the spot. They are The Kingdom and the Beauty, by a director whose name I'm about to get wrong, Lee Han Xiang, and Pendekar, Bujang, LAPOK, 1959, by an old favorite of ours, P. Ranley.
Yes, who we talked about a few episodes ago for some reason. Because
of Pontianacs, that's why.
That's right.
And oily maniacs, I think.
Yes. And oily maniacs, yes.
Yes.
Sorry, it wasn't Pontianacs, was it? It's oily maniacs.
Yes, he was an oily maniac. Although I'm very excited to see that there's an actor in that movie.
Oh yes.
That was in Pusak, whatever it was, Pontianak.
Start of the show.
Yes. But we'll get to that when we get to that movie.
Yes, we will.
So once again, we're in the territory of when Shaw was straddling, Asia. So it's not just Hong Kong in the form of Kingdom of Beauty. With the other film, we are, into their Malay film productions. So we're still discovering, because I think this is the thing, isn't it, for us, is above all else thus far, in terms of illumination, things we didn't know anything about before. It's the Malay stuff, right? That's properly unknown territory for us.
Yeah.
We have pith helmets on.
Yes, exactly.
We're what's the word? Ruthlessly colonizing Malaysia with our white ignorance.
Again.
Yes. It's like the 1930s all over again.
Good times. So
weren't they just? Yes.
So anyway, Kingdom
that granddad used to abuse.
Kingdom and the Beauty first. Right. What's all this about then, Darren?
Well, we're in Hwang Mei Opera again.
Right.
So we saw a bit of this. We saw a bit of this last time. Was it last time? Or the time before?
Who knows?
Anyway, it's in a very similar vein to Diao Chan, which we looked at on a previous ShawScope. So the majority
same stars.
Same star. Yeah, Linda Lindai.
Linda Lindai, yeah.
So so the majority of dialogue and action is sung as opposed to spoken, which it was nice to have Diao Chan get acclimatized to this, and it's a pretty famous film. It's an award-winning film. It's kind of in the back of your mind. If you read about sort of the history of Hong Kong cinema, this tends to pop up as a title. Even if you haven't seen it, and I haven't seen it before, I must admit. But I'd certainly heard of it.
Speaking of singing as well, this time I noticed that Linda Lindai's name perfectly lends itself to singing Linda, 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 Linda.
Linda.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yes. Oh nice. Yeah. Yeah. Good one, Clive. Good one. So Yeah, so Huang Mei opera, Ming Dynasty epic. As Nick said, directed by Li Hanxiang, Linda Lin Dai, Chow Lei, very interestingly and very amusingly, King Hu is in the cast list.
Yes, as Frankie Friendzone.
Yes.
So it's funny because I have listened to your other podcast where you talked about some of King Hu's films, which I haven't seen yet. I have yet to see one. So now moving forward, when I get to Come Dance With Me, etc., or Come Drink With Me, sorry, I will be seeing this very sad friend-zoned little guy.
Yeah, I'm not sure how helpful or not that's going to be, because King Hu is, we're jumping ahead, but King Hu, in my opinion, is actually hilarious in this.
Yeah.
I thought he was brilliant.
Ignorance here, but I'm obviously not in on this joke. Who's Frankie? What did you say? Friend zone.
I don't know. I just invented him. He's this poor guy is squarely and completely trapped in the friend zone. By the end of the movie, my heart really went out to him. We'll get to it.
You're saying two words. You friend zone.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
There we go.
I thought you were alluding to an obscure Italian-American actor, Frankie Frenzone, who was on the sitcom or something I haven't seen, and you both have.
Yes, so, yeah.
He was in a lot of peplum.
Yes, he was.
In the early 60s.
But he never got the girl. He never,
I see. Frankie Frenzone. Very good. Well done.
There we are. Yeah. Achilles versus the Minotaur in space. 1964.
Yes.
Frankie Frenzone. Frenzone.
Mario Bava shot it.
That's it.
Yes.
That's the one. Yeah.
So we're not going to talk about the weird Shaw Brothers shield that shows up at the beginning. That's not the one that I know, with the purple and salmon drapes behind it.
I quite liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, but it's not.
It's nice to see something a bit different, and the music is a little different as well. It's funny. It's like the bridge. I realized, hearing this early prototype version of you realize that it's 20th Century Fox, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not the same fanfare.
No, but it's
an off fanfare.
It sounds like 20th Century Fox, but it also sounds like the Shaw one. And then you realize, that's where they got it from. It hasn't been disguised enough yet with the drums and stuff.
Yeah, it's the evolution, isn't it? It's like the midpoint.
Yes.
Yeah. Also in the film is a very little David Chiang.
Yeah, is he one of the two? Like, is he like little prick kid number 2?
That's
the one singing the song to her.
Yeah.
To make her sad. Okay.
That's it. Yeah, the little shit. Yeah. Yeah. So so we've got quite a lavish production on this. Again, we're in the very, very much the same kind of I suppose you could call it a golden kind of technical age, couldn't you? I remember making the comparison when we looked at Diao Chan, that it's like Antony and Cleopatra, or Ben-Hur, or a Cecil B. DeMille, Ten Commandments,
definitely
historical epic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It looks amazing in terms of costume. I mean, in general, of course, Shaw, weren't didn't skimp on this stuff, but because this is quite early on, it's interesting. They've really pushed the boat out, right? Like the sets and the costumes and everything just look really, really authentic and impressive, right? It's before it settled down, so it's not, like if you keep an eye out, you can see the same street from different angles, and you can see the costumes. They washed the blood stains out from the Chang Cheh film and reused it for another one. It's still very fresh, mint looking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the painted backdrops are really impressive here as well. Like in a way, they don't distract. Like when they cut from them to real nature back again, there's something so hyper real about the whole film, about that intense saturated color and stuff. I mean, I was reading a review somebody else had written, and they said it really is one of those movies where you could take any given still, and it would be like a beautiful thing you want to hang on your wall. Like,
yeah. Also struck me as well watching. We'll get Darren to do the plot in a minute, but it also struck me this time. Linda Lin Dai. She always reminds me of someone, and I couldn't quite figure out who it is. But this time, the penny dropped. there's something very, very Judy Garland about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah, there's
about
kind of like
reaction.
this. Yeah, there's like this sadness around her, isn't there? There's like this kind of, just this kind of atmosphere. You know, there's this kind of, she's all alone. You know, regardless, and actually,
Yes.
you know, much the same as Judy Garland was, and actually in her real life, if you read up about her real life, then you know she
I
met
did
the
this
sad
time.
end.
It's funny that I didn't the first time we talked about her, but this time I did, and was pretty saddened to hear about how things wound up for her.
Yeah,
I wonder, you know, because it's kind of, it's hard
Well,
to read
I
between the
didn't.
lines.
So illuminate us. Why not?
Well, I was trying to kind of read between the lines, because the stories from the newspapers from back then are kind of sketchily written, right? Because basically what they say is, after having a trivial argument with her husband, she took an overdose of sleeping pills and gassed herself. And this was at the age of like her early 30s, basically. But then when I read a little more, they kind of mentioned more, well, it was, I wondered if it was a sort of a postpartum depression plus she was getting rejected for roles and being told she wasn't as pretty as she used to be, and so it kind of, maybe all this pile, and then she having this argument with her husband, maybe it all just,
Or she was even more clumsy in the kitchen than Darren.
could have been.
I did, yeah. It's only a matter of time before I fall over the gas cooker, and fall onto a bottle of you know, barbiturates.
Yeah.
I
wasn't aware of. I have to admit, I wasn't aware of that. When I said she reminded me of Judy Garland, I specifically meant something about her performance and the way she looks and stuff. But it turns out there's also the real life tragic angle.
But no, I completely agree with you as well on the performance angle, and actually even the way she looks, because you know Judy Garland isn't kind of classically beautiful, is she? She's not kind, you know, she's not Audrey Hepburn, is she? You know, Judy Garland is kind of quirky looking.
Yes,
and so is Linda Lindy.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So she's not,
you know, she played 3 out of the 4 like ancient beauties of China. There are, if you Google this, there are 4 ancient beauties of China, and Zhao Chan is one of them. And she was she not also in The Magnificent Concubine?
Didn't we watch The Magnificent Concubine?
Yeah, we
did,
watched
and I'm wondering.
Concubine. Yes, yes, that is Magnificent Concubine. No, hang on.
No, that's Magnificent Porcupine. That monster movie Shaw Brothers made.
That's it.
Unfortunately now lost.
That's it. No, I think we've had enough giant monster movies after the last Echafoos. I think we'll find Clive.
Yes, giant Magnificent Porcupine did, of course, include footage from Dowley Way or whatever it was called.
Yeah. Yeah, hang on. I'm trying to get it straight in my head now. So Zhao Chan. No, Linda Lindy is Zhao Chan.
Yes, she is. Yeah, for sure.
Magnificent Concubine was someone else.
It was somebody else. Okay. I'm wondering then. Okay, so maybe I'm wrong about. But anyway, she did play. Well, she played 2 out of 4 of the ancient beauties of China. In any case, because I think she played Wang Zhaojun as well in another movie.
Yeah.
Nothing quite like doing your research.
Yeah, you know, you try.
Well, if you haven't got used to our level of research, our
dizzying heights of
exactly,
Wikipedia reading.
Yeah, our doctorate level.
This isn't videos you can't see. We're powdered in dust and cobwebs from the archives we've been crawling through.
Yeah, we do this by candlelight as well.
Fully footnoted in MLA style. So.
Yes. Anyway, we got sidetracked. So the wonderful Linda Lindy. I think we can all agree that Linda Lindy was spectacular in at least the films we've seen already. So we'll run through the plot then.
Yeah, go for it.
So you've got the young emperor, the young kind of foppish emperor.
Chao Lei, right?
That's it. Yeah. Chao Lei. And the emperor's called Chu Te Cheng. apparently.
Mhm.
I was trying to figure out actually if they were deliberately trying to allude to a real emperor or not.
Well, I think so, because it's the Ming Dynasty. It's the opening crawl says it is the Ming
Right.
Dynasty.
And
so
it's in the Forbidden City as well, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. But I couldn't quite figure out if they were deliberately trying to tell us, because it might be a well-known story of a particular emperor who did something along these lines.
The attention deficit emperor.
Yes.
His introduction is fantastic. Like him at the court, bored shitless, and then with this little pot with a couple of crickets in it that he's poking out with a stick, and then they escape and crawl on the faces of his ministers. That whole sets his character up immediately perfectly for the audience.
Yeah, he's having no fun being emperor, is he?
No. All he wants to do is he wants to. Well, later on we find out that he wants to play with the girls and wine and dine and play with his little crickets.
Yeah,
he's not as innocent as he first looks, is he? Because
no,
with his crickets, you think he's a bit of a man-child, but no.
Actually, it turns out he's a bit of
a lot of fucking trouble in this.
Oh yeah. He's a selfish piece of shit for sure.
Yes. So anyway, the emperor finds out that apparently it's really cool in this city, in this other city that he's never been to. So he decides to take his retinue to the other city against the advice of his his advisors.
In the south, right? It's somewhere called Kyangnan, I think.
That's it. Yeah. So he goes to the city and he runs into Linda Lin Dai's character, Tia Feng or Li Feng. Who's kind of, and it's quite interesting actually, isn't it? It's because it kind of the point where the emperor runs into Linda Lin Dai's character and her group of friends, they're playing a very, very infantile kind of childish game, aren't they? They're kind of it's like a kind of a, it's not like Kiss Chase, but it's almost like the sort of stuff you play in the playground when you're 8 years old, as if
and it's some kind of, I couldn't quite understand the rules of it, but someone is the emperor, right, as well.
Yeah.
So
and it's King Hu in a moss mustache. It looks like, and beard. Like it looks like it's literally made of like lichen or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought he looked a hell of a lot like Frankie Frizon.
Frizone.
It's Frizone.
Frizone.
So and her and a couple of female friends, and particularly King Hu's character, who is Tian Yu is his character name. And he's kind of, I actually initially thought that he was her brother.
Yes, but it's not brother, it's brother, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, so it's kind of,
her actual brother shows up later in the movie.
Yeah, so she works in the wine shop, and his dad owns the wine shop or something. And,
it's that because he appears, the first time he sees her, there's like a parade thing in the town, and she's singing. At first, I thought she was part of like a acting troupe or something like that. Yeah, but it turns out that's not the case, right? They just, or they only do that on festival days or something.
Festival days,
and the rest of the time they're working in this wine shop, which doesn't have many customers.
There's no customers.
no, and their
wine one customer, the emperor.
Their wine is fucking awful.
Yeah. Well, you know why? It's because every time someone comes in and fancies Linda Lin Dai, he shuts the shop up and puts the fucking customer in charge.
And that probably happens quite a lot, because they see her at the festival and they think, oh, she works at that wine shop, let's go and check her out.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed out the bit where he sees the festival first, and then later on he finds them playing a game in the forest.
We should also mention as well, in the meantime, because it comes down to this, so his empress mother has discovered that he's left, and then he sends the royal tutor, this old fellow, out to search for him, right?
Yeah.
To bring him back.
I do like that he was sent with like a member of the Imperial Guard who lives there, who's supposed to be looking after him, who completely disappears for almost the entire film. You're like, great job taking care of the Emperor, buddy. Like he's just nowhere to be seen.
Well, I get that though, because I think it's because there actually, in fact, there is even, I think, a conversation between the Emperor and his guard, where the guard says, "Emperor, you can't do this. this is not what emperors do. You have to go back to the city, and it's my job to look after you. And the emperor just goes, nah, fuck it. So I can quite understand the mentality of the guard who just says, "Oh, we're sod you there. I'm just going. I'm just going down the pub. You know, I'm going to see my sister over in the other village or whatever."
Right.
You know, so I get that mentality. But yeah, so yeah, you're quite right, Clive. There is this kind of resistance from the court and from particularly his mother, the emperor's mother, that they don't want him wandering around and, you know, sowing his oats or going to visit and putting himself in danger or being amongst the common people. You know, interpret that how you will.
If this was made in England, she would have been what's her face from Downton Abbey,
Barbara Windsor.
Maggie Smith. Yes, Barbara Windsor. Yes. From Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
Is
Barbara Windsor in Downton Abbey?
No.
Oh yes. She's constantly falling out of her shirt. It's good
that
stuff.
That whole conversation just went way over my head.
I've never seen Downton Abbey. I've only seen the flavour of it on trailers on the TV.
Right.
But
I think Maggie Smith was the one I was thinking of.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yes, I was making a joke. I was comparing Maggie Smith to Barbara Windsor, who I think is dead now anyway.
I think she is long in the grave. So.
Yes. Anyway,
she's with Sid now, so it's all good.
She's with Sid. She's with Sid in the big flat cap in the sky.
Actually, carry on Kingdom and the Beauty with Barbara Windsor in Linda Lindai and Sid James as the cackling emperor and his
that would be good. Bernard Bresslaw. No, not Sid James.
Bernard Bresslaw could be Tianyu.
Yes, but I'll tell you who the emperor is. Jim Dale. Jim Dale is the emperor.
Or if he actually fits as well with his poking at his cricket and Charles Hawtrey. But I don't know if he'd have been able to pull off the lady killer stuff.
The romantic.
I don't think. I mean, Charles Hawtrey couldn't even pull off lady killer when that was illegal when those films were made.
Right. So yes. So we'll get to the casting because we have plenty of time because that's our second production after Up Your Chamber. It comes out.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah. Up Your Chamber. Yeah. Coming soon.
We're cornering the market on dodgy old British sex comedy crossed with Shaw Brothers.
Chinese opera, Shaw Brothers movies. Yep.
You heard it here first.
Yep.
And
but
anyone tries to make another one, you're in court before your feet hit the ground.
The Kickstarter campaign starts here.
Yeah.
But there are there's some lines in this that would fit perfectly because when King Hu first comes out and what is her name? The Linda Lindai's character, Li Feng. She's like, he'll make a great emperor, and the other guy says, no, he'd make a convincing eunuch, which is great. But because you're immediately like, is he going to be in deep
messing about?
Yeah,
but it's perfect carry-on material.
Frankie Howard came in at that point.
What's great about this movie, though, is the way that it begins as a romantic comedy, slightly farcical thing, and then shifts gears mid-point quite spectacularly and becomes something totally different.
Then it just goes over the precipice into this pit of horror and despair, doesn't it?
It doesn't do it though. It doesn't do it in that way we've become familiar with in more recent times. It doesn't do it in the whiplash-inducing change of tone. It's very gradual, isn't it? Like you don't really notice it's happened, and then when you get to the end of the film, you're like, oh fuck, what? And then you think back to how it started, and it's very.
Well, he was always a feckless arsehole, basically. But you kind of forgive it at the beginning of the movie.
He's harmless at the beginning, isn't it? He just wants to play with insects. He's like eunuch. He just wants to play with his insects.
Yes. Yeah. I did notice they went with that as they go to. Let's set him up as a gormless, guileless fool right away by having him playing with bugs. It was like, oh, that's not good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sadly, I didn't even bring it up, but I'd gone into my books about Chinese cricket keeping because I have.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Because sadly, I have books that talk about Asian cricket keeping.
But then you impregnated that woman in your village, and then,
yes,
yeah,
and then went back to my forbidden city.
That's
But
all.
anyway.
That's all euphemism as well. That's all. That's a fetish.
yes,
Yes.
Yeah, you don't want to be going anywhere near Nick's
forbidden city.
No, it's actually what I call the toilet here.
It's forbidden for a reason.
Yes.
There's a court order, in fact, forbidding it. Can't go in a certain distance of
Nick.
All right, so the movie then. Yes. The Kingdom of Beauty.
I'd rather carry on just making things up about you.
Oh, well, that's certainly doable as well. So where had we left her? He just started to woo her. He meets her. King Hu is not very happy about this.
Yeah.
It's
kind of a tit and tat thing, though, isn't it? It's kind of like, oh no, I don't really like you, or oh, I'm shy, or oh, it's not proper, and it's all kind of, it's all that kind of dance, isn't it?
Flirty and very grade school, elementary school kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Reminded me of that time you kicked that orphan in the face, Nick.
Oh yes. Those were good days.
As it was running from the burning orphanage, and you just just flew.
I feel like that's a scene from like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, isn't it? Where he stamps on a child.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well, there's no stamping on children in this film.
No,
by the way.
No, don't worry.
We got quite sidetracked there.
Yes, we get.
And we haven't really described the plot.
No, we should finish.
We're halfway through it.
Yeah.
Just about. We're about at the gear shift, but there is a bit more to and froing right before.
Yeah, but it does. It's kind of, and it's hard to gauge this. So as soon as it goes from I hesitate to say playing hard. Linda Lindai playing hard to get, because she may not necessarily be playing hard to get. But as soon as the romance turns physical, then let's say, then there is this scene. And whether it's the difference between, giving your woman, John Wayne giving the woman the slap before he takes her to bed, because it's the 1950s, whether it's the difference between that and now. But I did find it quite jarring, actually, that he's kind of it's not a rape scene, but there's some very forceful.
It seems coercive. It's at the point where he ends up hiding out in her. So, I mean, he ends up kind of having to hide out in her bedroom because her actual brother has come home, and then he uses this as an opportunity. Well, I'm in your bedroom now, so I'm going to make the most of the opportunity. And he definitely starts pushing a lot harder. And because I watched it with my wife, and both of us were like, "Ooh, he's definitely moving into serious douchebag territory here." In a way that up until that point.
And this is also before you find out he's the emperor as well. She doesn't know he's the emperor at this point.
Well, I was surprised by the whole thing, to be honest with you, because it's and the other Pangmei operas we watched as well are ever so chaste, right? And you don't see anything even really alluded to that sex actually happens at all. And here, not only, I mean, it happens off screen, obviously, but not only they kind of hammer the point home a little bit, right? Because afterwards they have this footage of like mating insect fish or something, and someone saying on the are singing, I guess.
Lovers in autumn quickly mate. I wrote it down.
So I was actually quite surprised. I mean, that it went there in this context in 1959. So I was thinking this might have been quite the shocker as well when it was new, right? It was one of the reasons why it might be so well remembered, because I'm guessing audiences at the time as well might not have expected it to go that way.
Although, having said that, I mean, maybe we are viewing this through the lens of Hollywood a little bit too much, because because Hollywood and Europe, UK, I guess, there was this kind of not the Hays Code exactly, but there were kind of studios that tend to put restrictions on couples being seen in bed, all that sort of stuff. And it's not, I wonder if it's not necessarily the case in the East. I don't know. You've probably seen more Eastern films at least than
I would have thought it might have been slightly more conservative I mean, if you were to compare, even though it was a massive scandal and certainly didn't go down well, if you compare at the same time 1959, we would have had like Peeping Tom, right? Which is, you know, even more down that kind of psychosexual kind of, and of course destroyed Michael Powell's career, right? But it seems a little bit further along, maybe. I think we might have some more lubric stuff, maybe. But anyway, regardless, yes. So, so the royal entourage eventually finds the emperor, the wayward emperor, and
I mean, we should say that she gets quite upset because she realizes she sees his underclothes, basically. He's been hiding kind of under peasant-ish or whatever, like commoner clothes, and she sees his whole royal regalia and realizes that if she doesn't realize he's the emperor, she certainly realizes he's way out of her class. And she does these she has a series of sort of metaphors or similes. She talks about how can a raven be with a phoenix, or, you know, you're on the top of the trees and I'm underneath the sea. Like there's these gulfs between us, you know, kind of what have you done? You know, and then literally the next scene, you know, she realizes that he's the emperor and that his entire retinue has showed up to drag him home by the ear, basically.
Right. But he promises, I'll call for you as soon as I'm back in the Forbidden City, not next Forbidden City. We don't go there. I shall, you know, call for you, and then
I won't. I promise I won't immediately forget about you the second I see a bunch of pretty girls.
And leaves her.
Won't happen.
Importantly, leaves her a little ribbon, red ribbon.
Yes.
Although later on, there's a scene, and I understand because later on as well, when he forgets about it, he leaves the ribbon behind, but there's a scene. But then I'm totally on board with that because just after that, because we'll get to this, but she gets pregnant, she gets morning sickness. I noticed she uses her ribbon to puke in. So I'm thinking, I don't want your pukey smelling ribbon either, no matter how much I love you. But yeah, so as soon as he gets back to the city, his very clever mother figures out, well, because she's not having any of this, because obviously Linda's character is not of royal blood.
She's a wine bar girl.
Yes, exactly. So she figured, don't worry, I know my boy.
Has the attention of a goldfish.
I'm going to give him a harem, basically.
Yeah, full of naked crickets.
Yes. Yeah,
that would be a very interesting, different film. The Burt I. Gordon version of Kingdom of the Big Two.
Yes.
The cricket lovers. Anyway.
And so this is a complete aside, but my wife and I were watching this, and when they first come back to the Forbidden City, they have to step into like this kind of throne room, and there's this huge barrier. Like where the door is, there's this kind of like wall that they have to like swing their legs over, and I'm like, that's a really strange and inconvenient thing to have across your door. Something that's above knee height. Fascinated. I'd like to know more about this.
You can't get in.
I guess so. Yeah. You really have to swing that leg high to get in there.
Yeah, that's not so much the Forbidden City. That's more the slightly inconvenient city.
Yes. Yeah.
Which was a precursor to the Forbidden City. I believe Darren is now pouring more tea over his floor.
I am no. I put a towel down.
So you can spill as much tea as you want.
So that's why I'm doing it to the side. You see, you can't see this, listeners.
Yeah.
But I've got a big pot of tea with a nice teacosy on with daffodils on, and before we started recording, I spilled my tea while I was trying to pour it out of my quite large teapot. So I got a towel, and now I have to go down the side to pour my tea.
This is the exciting rock and roll lifestyle that happens off screen.
Oh yes,
it's slice of life is what it is. It's like a kitchen sink drama. Listening to me.
So anyway,
it's like Mike Lee is directing this episode of Nachafus in ShawScope.
So the Emperor's having a whale of a time, fucking.
Yes.
And meanwhile, Linda is
pushing a watermelon out of her private parts.
Is that a euphemism for something?
I mean, that's what it's always been described to me as. I'm a man who's well read, sensitive to a lady's needs.
It does come out of the vagina, a baby.
Yes. Anyhow, she's having a baby in great pain while he's carousing and having a good time.
And he's totally forgotten about it. And
yes,
yes, and as well, the thing is, even when it eventually turns around and because the brother and the father decide, I don't care, he's the emperor or not, this is disgraceful behavior, and they make sure that he knows that he's left this pregnant woman behind.
Yes.
But and then he's, even when he's kind of doing the right thing, he's so flaky, this guy. He's like, oh yes, how could I forget the love of my life? It's like, like that. It's
and
like, oh.
And he blames them. How did you, like, you nearly
why did you let me forget?
A bad guy.
Yeah.
Because of your forgetfulness.
And at this point as well, there's this kind of nice montage as well, isn't it? I really quite like this montage. So it's, it's kind of flitting in between, a nice little snowball fight between the emperor and his harem.
Yeah.
His concubines, and Linda Lindai, all pale, pallid and weak, and just destroyed by the lack of her lover, and having to bring up a child.
Yes,
that she can't
which I mean, her sister-in-law has
right.
kindly sort of pretended is hers, although nobody in the entire town believes this.
So that's
and
the
local children,
just to put
including David Chang,
yes.
Sing songs about what a slut she is to her face.
Yeah. I never trusted that David Chang.
My wife was outraged by this because she was like, "This emperor is a scoundrel," which is great. Thanks, wife. And then she's like, and even her vegetables are wilted, says my wife, because she's wandering with this basket of sad-looking vegetables.
Everything's sad. Everything's grey back in the poor lands, back in the wine shop lands.
Yeah, and
I like that. Yeah.
She's become the shame of the town, right, as well, right? Like, oh yeah, how's that nephew of yours? yeah, and all that.
Yeah, and it's nice. There are a number of scenes of her almost kind of, everywhere she turns, there's shame and mockery.
And she directly says to the baby, the only reason I'm not committing suicide is because of you, at one point, which is like, ooh, that's sad.
It gets dark pretty soon, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then just when you think, when it does turn around and the emperor is gonna, actually man up and she's invited to join, then the fucking weather, basically.
Yes. But we should say before that, though, this is where Frankie Friendzone really steps up. He really mans up. He's, my reading is that he's been in love with her all along, and he's just infuriated and upset, and he goes off. I mean, he's not her brother. He's not directly related to her. He's, her friend / friend-zoned guy. He stalks off, like marches halfway across the country through like bitter snow and ice, just to hold the emperor accountable, to basically throw his life on the line, to be like, you're an asshole. And you have left behind a child, and
Yes, this is true.
He just rocks up at the Forbidden City.
Yes, you're right.
Rapping.
To anyone who'll listen, he's prepared a song about what a piece of shit the emperor is.
That is a glaring anachronism when he enters the Forbidden City with his boombox on his shoulder.
Yeah.
Held above his head, a la John Cusack.
Insane editing, yes.
Yeah. You're a wanker, Emperor.
Yes, and then you're right. So then the weather. So then finally the Emperor does show up at her door. No, he doesn't. He sends his guys and says, "Hey, bring her back to the city. Sorry, I forgot about you." And then it gets very. Jen was like, because again, I was watching with my wife. She was like, "This is all very Pride and Prejudice. This thing about people who catch their death literally while riding a horse or something in their dress. This is that kind of or what's the other one? Wuthering Heights, that kind of high drama English stuff." But yes, she literally does. I mean, she's already been weakened because she spent a year basically not eating, clearly not sleeping, and pining away for this guy. And then this trip well, is the end of her, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yep. And
But
yeah.
there's that nice little bit as well before, you know, so there's quite an extended kind of sequence, isn't there, of her on the journey. You know, and the journey starts out okay, and then the weather turns, and then, you know, there's
stuck in the mud.
danger in the air, and then you get this scene in the temple.
Oh yeah,
Where
that's brilliant.
Yeah, where she just goes around all of these statues that all look really fucking sinister.
Yep.
And praise to all of these deities, you know.
And the lighting is really, really powerful there. And her face is total, it's like a mask of anguish or agony. Like, this is where Linda Lindai really sold me more than anything else in that moment, that she is a woman at the end of her tether in every way.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then clearly the message of this movie is like, the gods don't give a shit.
Yeah. I wrote this down.
Oh, go on.
No, I was going to say, I wrote this down. I wrote one of the lyrics down. So she's in the temple. And this is kind of almost the penultimate scene of the film. So she's in this temple and everything's scary, and there's thunder and lightning and rain and everything outside. And she's going around all these scary looking statues in shadow, you know, praying to them in song. And pretty much, I think the last thing she says to the gods before she gets back in the carriage, which is probably her last line of dialogue, is sung, "Let me see him and I can die in peace."
Right.
You know, really sticking the knife in.
Yeah, all she does is ask, all she's begging for is 3 more days of life. Just give me 3 more days and then the gods don't even do that.
No. So she gets back in the carriage, and by the time she arrives, she's dead.
Yeah. And that is the end of the film, right? And then he kind of pines over her a little. I mean, I'm guessing he's got a new girl by the time of Kingdom of the
Lunchtime.
Before the end comes up on the screen.
Boogaloo, right? But but it's interesting. It's an interesting one because it is one of those. I'm not necessarily a man who demands that a film has, you know, a strong message or anything like that. But by the time this film reaches, it's just such a stark, like you said, God doesn't give a shit. It's just such a stark ending. It did leave me a little, not wanting or anything like that. Just I was like, oh, is that the story? Is it just there's an emperor and it's caused a lot of trouble, and now this woman's dead, and that's about it. And it's not a story particularly about, there's no redemption, because after that, you know, he just picks her up, her body, takes her. There's no real sense. He doesn't look necessarily as if the realization has hit him, oh my fuck, this is my doing, or anything like that, right? It's just, oh, it's a shame. One of my
he's
dead.
He's really sad she's dead. You know, he's really sad she's dead. There's no mention of the child.
No.
Yeah. My wife was like, that was her first. As soon as the credits came, she was like, "Wait a second."
Yeah.
the baby is just.
He's just like, I've lost one of my receptacles. I'll have to get another one, kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there's not even, you know, like in
not my fault.
Yeah, but you know, as in Diao Chan, you know, and Diao Chan, incredibly different film to this, but in the same style, and actually, is it by the same director?
Can't remember.
Maybe by the same director. Could be wrong. We'll check it out. But yeah, it's you know, you've not even got the comfort, you know, of a little epilogue, you know, like you had at the end of Diao Chan, you know, over the centuries. Women changed Chinese history.
Right. Or what I mean is, there's nothing. There's no final song, even just saying something along the lines of, you know, oh, you know, life is fragile and unfair. Nothing. Fuck all. It's just there you go. There's your story. Fucking fuck off and cry.
So it begs the question. Yeah. And that's probably the point of the film, isn't it? Is the point of the film is just to rip your heart out and just to take you on a roller coaster of emotion.
But it's something you don't necessarily expect. Like in that way, it's quite postmodern, right? Because it's the kind of thing you'd expect someone would make now. Like I'm going to strip away everything and just deliver, you know,
Yeah,
you know,
This is Lars von Trier's
right.
Chinese opera.
It's just this is a tragic story. That's all it is. Fuck off, go home.
Yeah.
And it's surprising to see it again in this context of Hong Kong opera, and with all the lavish kind of production values and everything like that. You don't expect this bare bones, stripped down, life sucks and people are not held accountable story. And I admire that. I think more than I might enjoy. I think it's a good film. It's an interesting film, but I admire that stance. Maybe like I'm not sure if I'm going to rush out and watch Kingdom and the Beauty again, for a while. But I admire it. I think more than I enjoyed it. Let's put it that way. Even though it is a good film.
But you're right. It is the same director, by the way.
Yeah. Also, same director, Yang Kuei-fei.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. And the upcoming Enchanting Shadow, is that right?
Yeah. But yeah, no.
What do you think? What do you think in relation to? Do you have a different take on it, or is that how you kind of saw it as well? Or
no, I don't disagree. I mean, I enjoyed it fine. I probably didn't enjoy it as much as Zhao Chan, just because I think she has more agency in that film. She's like a weapon almost. Whereas in this, she's really a tragic figure kind of put upon. And so, but that said, yeah, I like the idea too of like creating a message this uncompromising, but tying it up in this form that you wouldn't expect that message to be presented in at all.
Exactly.
It'd be like opening up a copy of the Beano and finding some tragic, serious thing in there. Like, what's this doing?
Yeah, actually, Dennis the Menace actually stabs Walter Softy to death. Yes. He dies in a gutter and gets away with it.
Yeah. Because the police don't care because he was a softie.
Yeah.
All
the Bash Street kids end up on heroin and die.
Right. Yes, yeah. Surprising last Leo
After Up Your Chamber, after Carry On Kingdom and the
We're going to do the train spotting version of the Beano.
Yes, of the Beano, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because it's like I'm trying to draw a line between this film and something else, and the kind of the bleakness of this film and something else, or rather this kind of surprising bleakness of the film. So because it starts out, and particularly because we're used to musicals, in this, this side of the world, in the West, of being generally quite jolly,
right?
Particularly from this period. That I'm trying to draw a line between this and something.
I suppose. I mean, it's hilarious, but isn't it? Because it's obviously widely reviled as being hopelessly Orientalist, but Madame Butterfly, right?
Yeah.
By Puccini.
Yeah. Well, the other thing
has elements of this.
It's interesting because the name already came up, and because to your point, Darren, about how, in general, we tend to think of music. So, for example, when that film, Dancer in the Dark, came out, I think that was one that people responded to was, "Oh, it's a tragic musical," and you mentioned Lars von Trier. Right, so
that's what I was thinking.
There's a kind of an analogy there, right, as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, I was kind of thinking of it a different way. I'm wondering if there might be some through line between this and kind of the rise of urban kitchen sink kind of tragedy drama that you kind of get, at least you get in the West, and presumably, and we haven't seen any, or at least I haven't seen any, but there's the Cantonese Wenyi films that are all about that.
That's kind of interesting, actually. Yeah, you wonder in that context, where is this placed kind of? Because again, it's difficult for us. We might just be reading into things that aren't there, but it's also entirely possible that might have been the idea. Let's take this and this. And then put them together and see what that looks like.
Yeah, but also, we've got to acknowledge our ignorance of Hwang Mei opera, and
Yeah,
we've seen, I mean, I've seen 2 of them,
right.
And
we're
they were
experts
for
already.
ShawScope.
Yes.
So yeah, exactly. So I don't know that this isn't a trope.
Exactly. Yeah, we could be talking about. It could be. We could be totally wrong about this. Actually, when it came out in 1959, maybe everyone went, "Oh, boring." Seeing this before,
She dies. Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, in conclusion,
would say the one difference is if this had been made in Japan, because my wife brought this up. She was like, if this was made in Japan, the entire family would have had to commit suicide. Like the shamed brother, she would have had like an ending so much more grim. The emperor would not only have not sent for her, but it would have been like, like that the bastard child. That's it. You've all got to fall on your swords.
Yeah. But I guess if it was made in Japan, maybe this is an oversimplification of that cinema, but if it was made in Japan, then it would probably be a little bit more consistently downbeat.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
As opposed to quite fun and quite silly in the beginning or the first half, and then all of a sudden, there's
never a screeching of gears. It's a really, as I think we said, it's a really natural progression from the characters.
Totally organic.
Her being slightly maybe innocent and flighty and also flirty, and him being a bit of a scoundrel, and then there's repercussions.
However, not organic or gradual at all is our switch from Kingdom and the Beauty to PENDEKAR, BUJANG, LAPOK. So are we ready? Are we done? Are we ready to pock? Not yet, Darren?
In a moment, we shall get to it.
Okay. Are you in need of some...
I'm in need of pointing my Percy at Mr. Porcelain. Right.
You go ahead then with your Percy's progress.
I might need to top up my my teapot as well, because...
Not with your urine.
You have more floor that needs to be wet.
Well, I'm gonna leave that to your imagination.
All right. Okay. So while Darren goes and drinks his own piss, we'll
It's very good for you. It's got quite a lot of nutrients.
Golden swallow, my friends. The great Chang Chia was a firm believer in quaffing your own micturation. I'll be back in a second. I think I'm going to do the same.
Is a micturation a word?
I believe so. Google it right now while you have a moment.
Micturation. Okay.
Or micturating.
Ask you one question, I'll ask you, my dear. You'll only marry me, I'll have a fit right here. I wanna go home, said I wanna go home. Lord, ain't it a shame, well, measly shame. Keep your honey out in the rain. Lord, open the door and let me in. I'm a freezing wet to the skin. Big yellow minister was a-sitting down on the end, talking to that pretty yellow gal, says I believe, oh God, he'll win. Wanna go home, said I wanna go home. Lord, ain't it a shame, but measly shame. Keep your honey out in the rain. Lord, open the door and let me in. I'm a freezing wet to the skin. You've been laying around here till everybody's getting sore. Might as well move your roosting poles that you can't roost here no more. Wanna go home, said I wanna go home. a shame, for miserly shame. Keep your honey out in the rain. Lord, open the door and let me in. I'm a freezing wet to the skin.
Pock, pock, pock. Bujang LAPOK. And we're joining the overdue bachelors for...
Overdue Bachelor Warriors.
Oh, yes,
Yes,
sorry, I forgot
yes,
about it.
yeah, it's
Well,
not
no,
the
hang on
original.
now. Hang on now, Darren.
We're in
This
part
is
2.
the second in the 4-part overdue bachelors series.
Ah, okay.
Yes. Yes.
So, yes, so the film under discussion is PENDEKAR, Bujang LAPOK, which, and you're quite right, Darren, that is the warrior or fighter or soldier
Yeah.
part of the...
So it's Pendekar Bujang Academy 4.
Yeah.
No,
I
two.
believe it is.
Two.
The bachelors learn Silat.
It's two.
Yes.
It's back in training.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
No, that's
Yes.
the third one. What's the second one called?
No, I don't think the third one's back in training.
Yeah, the
There's-
third one's back in training because the second one's the one with Bobcat Goldthwait
As
Yeah.
Zed, yes.
Yeah.
and number
What's
4.
Citizens on Patrol? That's
Number
the
4
one.
is Bujang LAPOK
Why are we-
on patrol. No, we're gonna get into it now.
Okay. All right.
Bujang LAPOK on patrol. The 5th one is assignment PENDEKAR Bujang LAPOK.
Right.
And then it's Bujang LAPOK 6 Village Under Siege. But I can't remember what
Courthouse under siege.
I can't. Oh, hang on, there's one more. Bujang LAPOK 7 Mission to Moscow
Oh, yes.
I thought
Yes.
there was a 7th one. Bloody
Yeah.
hell.
without Steve Guttenberg, right?
Was he
Is
in
even
many
in the
of them?
6th one? I thought he dropped
Was
out
he-
in the
yeah,
6th.
I thought he bowed out earlier than that.
Oh, you might be
but,
right. You might be
But
right.
I'd imagine, was it Michael Winslow? Who was the guy who did the voices or did the noises?
Oh, no, it wasn't my...
Yeah.
Oh, it's like he's in the building. It's like he's in the room.
Anyway, we may have strayed somewhat.
Yes.
Possibly.
Yes.
So when
But this is a P. Ramley joint. I think that's the important thing.
It is a P. Ramley
Right.
joint.
And this
Right.
is the second P. Ramley joint we have watched. And the first one, I think, was one of the most widely celebrated films we've talked about so far. I think all three of us thought that whichever of the Oily Maniac movies that was,
Yeah.
Curse of the Oily Maniac, I believe, was a hell of a movie.
Yeah,
And-
great.
And I thought P. Ramley was great. And this is interesting because this is comedy P. Ramley, and we have
Yes.
seen tragedy horror, I guess, P. Ramley before this.
rapey,
But this-
tragedy horror.
Tragedy
Yeah.
horror, rapey fantasy.
Yes, yeah. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
But it turns out that I think P. Ramley is no slouch in the madcap comedy.
Clearly P. Ramley was a force to be reckoned with, because on top of that as well, the other string to his bow was, of course, his musical career, which arguably
Yes.
might be what he's most well known for. And
Yeah.
again, he does the music here, right?
Yeah. Sorry, do you mind if I just interrupt for a second? I want to actually give a shout out
Okay.
to my good friend Boone,
Okay.
who will probably never hear this, but I the only person other than you two chaps that I could ever talk to about P. Ramley is Boone, who I got really drunk and had a good chat to him about P. Ramley because he's from Malaysia.
Oh,
Is he-
awesome.
Is he still a motorcycle courier?
Yes, it's he's big mates with Neil Morrissey.
Ha ho, Silver! Rocking a ranger, riding all night.
I'm amazed you remembered that theme tune.
Yeah, I amazed myself.
Yeah. Boone Elphick, his name is, full name is.
Right. I'm not sure if Nick is responding with knowing nostalgia or what the fuck are they on about. All right.
incomprehension.
Fair enough. We shall move on then.
Yes, educate yourself.
Yes, hello,
Okay.
Boone. Does Boone listen?
No.
Oh.
But up until recently, he didn't know I did the podcast and
Okay.
was flabbergasted that I knew who P. Ramley was, and I was quizzing him. The reason was we'd just done the Pontianak episodes, and I was down the pub with him with a group of friends, and I said, "Oh, Boone, you're from Malaysia. Can you tell me what you think a Pontianak is?" And he told me something completely different to what is in the films. So it was a very interesting conversation. Then we got into P. Ramley a bit. So I just want to thank Boone for indulging me and giving me a bit of first-hand info.
Can you remember anything of your P. Ramley conversation that would be prescient? Not prescient.
No, not
You know what I
really.
mean?
Because Boone's probably been away from Malaysia for about 30 years. Probably longer, actually, because he's a bit older than I am. So I think his memories were a bit vague and kind of tinged with nostalgia.
Well,
but
I also
he said you have, if you're looking at Malaysian films, you have to, you can't not look at P. Ramley.
But I also wonder if even if he hadn't been away, because so this is something that so growing up in the UK, at least when we were kids, seems to have been one of those countries where we seem to have a good grasp on pop culture before we were born, which I always took it for granted that was the norm. And then when I came here to Japan and also traveling about some other places, I realized, oh, this is actually might be unusual in a lot of places, certainly here. If something was from before your time, you don't know it. Like, and I know Nick's familiar with this because he rocked up and he's like, hey, I'm the cool new teacher. Let's talk about Zatoichi. And all his students were like, who the fuck are you talking about, old man? That stuff my grandfather watched.
Yes. I started hanging out with guys in their 70s.
Yes.
In order to have conversations I wanted to participate in.
Yes. When he figured out that he wouldn't impress any schoolgirls with his Shintaro Katsu knowledge.
Not at all.
Hanging out with grandparents.
But I will say that apparently P. Ramley movies are shown on TV all of the time.
Right. Well, this is where I was going.
And so it does seem as though there is a younger generation. He does seem to still have quite a huge reputation, according to.
That's my point. Is I was wondering if Indonesia is one of those countries where they do embrace their past a bit more, and people would watch, because just because they're shown on television, I mean, all those old movies are shown on television here as well, on cable and stuff, but doesn't mean anyone watches them other than Oji-sans, right? So I'm not sure if young people are actually watching P. Ramley on television or not. It would be interesting to find out if, or if for modern young Malaysians, P. Ramley is as alien as he is to us.
Good question, yeah.
Thank you, Darren. I've been working on it for a while now.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So, what about this little fella then?
PENDEKAR, BUJANG, LAPOK. Yes, the second.
And I say little fella.
Yes.
There's a little tease.
Yes.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
And we're not just talking about the contents of Nick's underwear here. So this is the second of the BUJANG LAPOK series, and we couldn't get a copy of the first one, at least not with subtitles. So this is our entry point. But also, it seems as if this is considered the classic,
the best,
right?
Yeah, it seems to be considered the best of.
Yeah. From 1959, directed, written by P. Ramley, who did all the music, and of course a Malay film production, but with the Shaw Brothers shield front and center at the very beginning.
Yeah.
A black and white film, and again, so this is a difficult one to. I'm not quite sure how to go about this one in terms of plot
synopsis
and this. So
I love the opening of this movie because it's complete madness. I couldn't like I actually paused it at minute 18 to turn to my wife and be like, who are the main characters?
Yeah.
What is happening? And it was almost at that point, about minute 19, that I finally realized, oh, it's those three guys.
Yeah, same here. Same here. And I didn't didn't even recognize Ramley.
No,
Me neither. No, because he looks like a slightly chubbier version of The Rock in this movie. He has a lot of like Dwayne The Rock Johnson's kind of like, I don't know, sexiness and just general fucking awesomeness.
Yeah, he's kind of slick, but also quite hard, isn't he?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
When he starts doing the silat, which I had to look up, like I knew nothing about Malaysian and Indonesian martial arts at all. It's the first I'd ever seen the word was in the synopsis of this movie, and then I was like, is it really as kind of like dance fu as? And it turns out to be, I guess. Yeah. It is quite a dance.
It's also the martial arts they use in The Raid, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Silat,
which I have not seen. So
you have to see The Raid.
I will.
Well,
I understand that the Judge Dredd movie. Which I like
if you've seen Judge Dredd, it's the same film. So
somewhat based on
Yeah.
But yeah, no, P. Ramley is he's a. But anyway, he's barely in the first 18 minutes, as are the three leads, because it's a brawl, an endless brawl taking place on a dock. So I was just fascinated by this.
We should place this. So the Bujang Lapok of the title are P. Ramley, S. Shamsuddin, and Aziz Sattar. And I assume local audiences who saw the first film would have clocked them from the beginning, so it would make more sense. They would have known. But yes, for me, at the beginning of this film, I was like, "Oh, are we following these douchebags who run this wharf?" Like,
I love those guys. I love those assholes, and they're like
thieving motherfuckers.
Making that one guy wait with the like bucket head, waiting the entire time, just like endlessly being ignored and walk, but like 18 minutes of him standing patiently in line and other people getting onto the boat and getting off of it again was just pure comedy gold.
Letting all the pretty ladies go ahead of him and
just fully yelling at the tourists, berating them. I was like, this movie was not underwritten by the Malaysian tourist board for sure, because I was like, I never want to go to Malaysia if that's your experience.
So I was thinking, oh, this is a brave move. This is interesting. We're going to have three complete anti-heroes. Yeah. But it doesn't.
One of them even looked like Ramley.
Yes. Yes.
And I thought that was Ramley.
I think it might be a fashion and haircut of the day thing there.
Yeah. Again, white boy talking here. So it kind of kicks off, doesn't it? So it kicks off. Maybe you enjoyed it. I thought it went on far too bloody long. Personally,
all the fruit-based thievery at one point. It went from bananas to apples.
No, the brawl. I'm talking about the brawl. The brawl seemed to go on for about 15 minutes.
Yes, it was at a certain point. It was like, wow, this is madcap, zany, but it also seemed like a real fight. Like it was more chaotic and less funny, and just like, oh, these like what's happening? And this movie's descended into anarchy right away.
And then the film kind of properly begins, right? This is all just precursor, because our three heroes take advantage of this brawl that breaks out on this like quayside kind of dock, because it's basically like there's boatmen who take people across. I don't know if it's a big river or a lake or something, like some body of water, right? And we begin there, and our three main characters, the Bujang Lapok, are just kind of sitting in the corner busking, right? It seems. I thought they're just three random, because when the film starts, it is almost like a multi-character, like a Marx Brothers-y kind of thing. And I thought, the buskers at some point would get him, but I didn't realize they were our point of view protagonists. But yes, when the brawl breaks out, they take advantage of it and they escape. They steal a boat, basically. They're boat thieves.
Right. Although I think it's worth mentioning a few things before that. Like, one is that the boss shows up and he's a complete douchebag.
Right.
Who is what's his name here? Orang
Ahmad Nisfu, I think. Is that
Ahmad Nisfu is the actor, And his character's name is Orang Kaya Nisfu, which means is that oily again? So is he
No, I've got him
Oily
down
Miss Pooh?
as I've got him down as Torquay Sampson or Sampan or something. I've got him written down as.
Did you just say tall gay Samson? Because that's a
I
good
may
name.
have done. Yeah. No, I actually it's my handwriting.
Oh, you're right. I see that. Yeah. So it is on the. It's funny. I've seen there's different credits in different places. I'm looking right now at the Wikipedia, and it does say Tokay Sampan or River Jetty Boss.
Maybe that's what Tokay Sampan means. We don't know.
But yeah.
He's kind of a sleaze, isn't he? He's kind of a sleaze, kind of, Scrooge kind of character, isn't he?
Oh yeah,
oppressive boss.
Yes, he's and then angry old man shows up who's not putting up with this shit anymore, right? Played by Mustarjo, and he plays the PENDEKAR.
Great name.
Mustarjo, yeah,
the great Mustarjo.
And he plays. I mean, it's great too that all the characters' names are their basically slight variations of the actors' names, because P. Ramley plays Ramley, right? And Aziz Sattar plays Aziz, and then
they were busy people. They get confused if you had to remember character names for every film.
And don't forget Ibrahim Pendak.
Oh yes, yeah. But he hasn't showed up yet. We haven't. I
know. We're going to save it for best. We're going to save Ibrahim for later on, but
Mustarjo shows up, and I think that this actor was in Curse of the Holy Maniac. I think he was the village chief who goes mad and has the visions near the end of the movie, because he's in the credits of both films, and I'm thinking who he might be. I think he is the village chief who Anyway, regardless, yeah, he shows up. He's not having any, but they drag him outside, and there's this extended sound of a beating that you assume at that point is the old man getting his ass handed to him outside. And I'm like, this is going on a really long time. Again, it's gone past comedy to are they just beating an old man out there for 4 minutes of the movie? And then the big joke is...
Let's pause it there, Nick, because you bring up a point I think we'll come back to it again. So the comedy of, like you said, that scene, like you said, we're kind of used to seeing that in another film, let's say an old Hollywood film, and there'd be off-screen, and then cut back to the character saying, they sure give him in a beating, and then back, and then he comes in, surprise, and then cut to bodies, and it would happen in 3-4 seconds, right?
Yes.
The gap wouldn't take that long. But what's interesting here, like you said, it's like the extended Raga version or something, where it goes beyond, it's not funny anymore.
Yeah, it gets quite dark.
But then kind of gets funny again and surreal, just because the time stretching puts you, at least someone unfamiliar with the comedy of this time and place, puts you in such a strange headspace. So this film, we should say, front and center, is considered some kind of comedy classic, right? And whereas I can't say I was barely laughing all the way through, I have to say it's not unfunny, but then again, I'm not quite sure if it's funny either. It exists in a very weird space, a sort of comedy that it's not that, it's not that alien. I understand it, but it's played at a different beat or something. It's fresh to me just because I'm not used to the pace of this comedy. So straight up, I have to say, I cannot properly judge this film if it's actually funny or not. Bits made me laugh, but it's more bewildering than it is hilarious, I think. I enjoyed that.
There's certain sections where the comedy's obvious, I think. So you've got the kind of the language-based comedy in the language school. You've got the kind of pretending to sleep comedy in the, when they're staying with Mustar.
But
so
even
there's obvious stuff there.
Doesn't it?
It does, it's extended, isn't it?
The pace isn't the same as of a screwball comedy from the 30s or 40s, right? It takes its time, right? It's very languorous.
And yet there's something of maybe the Abbott and Costello or Bing and Bob. There's
Right.
something
Hang on now, Darren.
Yeah.
Who are Bill and Bob? They're flower pot men.
No,
Bing and Bob. Like Bing
Bing and
Crosby.
Bob. Bing Crosby and Bob Hope.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking about the flower pot.
The Flower Pot Men.
Yeah.
Bing and Bob.
No, what were they called?
Bill,
Bob
Bill and Ben.
Bill and Ben.
Bill and
Flower Pot
Ben.
Men.
That's it.
Yes. Before he went on, Bill and Ben. Interesting fact. Bill and Ben. Ben later when his sister gave birth to a child, went on to sell rice.
Fucking hell.
Oh yes.
That was an
Yes.
awful.
Wow, that was a long walk.
Was
For,
that was a long one.
I'm getting into PENDEKAR, BUJANG.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean,
But anyway, so I mean, it's great that we've gotten this long to get to the punchline of that joke as well. Is that surprise reveal? It turns out that the old man has beaten up all the riverboat thugs with what looks like an aubergine. Because when they cut back to them, there's a large eggplant on the ground next to all of these bodies. My wife immediately honed in on that fact.
You
maybe
want to
like
see the
Kosh.
uncut version?
Yes, yeah.
Sorry,
Yes,
just to mention, it's also worth mentioning, just as we're talking about the pacing of it as well. It's a longer film than you'd expect. It's 104 minutes, which is long for this kind of comedy. At least outside of this time and place, you wouldn't expect it to be that length, right?
So it does take 20 minutes to introduce who our main characters are and get our story started, because the first 20 minutes is taken up by a brawl on a dock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From the few Malay films we've seen so far, I get the feeling that length might be a thing, actually. Not to the extent of like Indian films, not that extreme, but they did seem to have got their money's worth out of their trips to the cinema.
Yeah, and it's funny because you would think because the natural comparison is Bollywood, and Bollywood films presumably are that long because they have these massive musical numbers throughout,
Right.
And this has got the two Ramli films that we've seen, as well as all the other Malaysian films we've seen, have all had musical numbers in.
Yeah,
but they're like a minute long.
Yeah.
So it doesn't kind of explain the length, does it?
I was wondering about this before if there's any, because the other thing I think about a lot of, I don't know about nowadays for a modern urban audience, but certainly in decades past, I think one of the other reasons Indian films are really long as well, it is genuinely value for money. People would, in the provinces especially, you went out to the cinema, it was like a day out, and people would
go for the whole evening.
And people would take like picnics. There's cooking in the theaters and stuff like that. So it's like it's a full experience. And so I'm wondering about the demographic at this time and place. I'm wondering if poorer people maybe going to the theater in Malaysia might have expected to have a long time in there so they get their money's worth, and it could be that aspect to it.
Yeah, and of course, there has to be a lot of bleed over between India and Malaysia as well, just culturally.
Right.
So presumably
they do feel a bit like musicals, that Indian musicals as well, right? Occasionally, there's definitely that flavor in there, isn't it?
Yeah.
One of my favorite gags actually happens right after they steal the boat. And they row it ashore, and then they kind of crash it into the shore, and then one of them says, like, "What the hell are you doing?" And the other guy says, "Oh, he only has his L license."
Oh yeah,
and I don't know why, but that actually made me laugh.
Yeah.
Well, it was probably a joke. I understand. Like,
right, that might have been it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, no, you know what though? The weird thing is that I think I understood all of the jokes in this film. I just kind of didn't laugh at any of them.
Right.
It was fine.
We'll get. I wrote down any time that I actually properly either laughed or had a proper smile.
Some of them just bounced off. Like, there's a whole thing about when someone tells a story and the people listening go
Oh yeah.
Goes around.
Yeah.
We're probably missing something there
Yeah,
that
yeah.
subtitles can't really.
No,
I
but
mean,
you
that's not
understand.
to
You
say-
still understand it's a joke.
Yes, and it's not to say that it's funny necessarily if you do get it right, but yeah. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a very quick version of the plot just to get that out the way, and then we can jump about.
Mhm.
We are
Yeah.
dragging on a bit here. We're almost as long as PENDEKAR, BUJANG, LAPOK. So as soon as they arrive wherever the fuck they are, the other side of the water, they immediately take to well, they find a school, right? They find a school,
Yes.
and
For
they're not
literacy.
sure what it is. Because another running joke, which I can't quite really get my head around, is they're all illiterate in different ways, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
one guy, I don't understand this joke at all. Really, it's not that he's only understands Arabic. Like he seems to understand what everyone says, but when he writes it down, he writes it in Arabic.
Yeah.
And then another guy draws pictures, and then I can't even remember what the other guy did.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's a running joke that I never quite really understood how the mechanics of that joke worked, you know. But anyway, they come across a school, and then a pretty young girl, Rose Yatima, who's only 15 apparently at the time.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Thank
Wow,
you for that.
they really
Noted.
leer at her quite spectacularly.
So it's a school for like higher learning adults, right? And they immediately start stalking this girl down the streets,
Yeah.
Yep.
follow her home, and then to cover up the fact that, basically we just want to shag your daughter, when the father comes out, who turns out to be Mustarjo, the Silat fighter, they're like, we want to learn your Silat skills, right?
Mhm.
And the daughter is very put out then because the father invites them into the house
To
and
live there.
Yeah, they kind of charm him and his wife, as played by Aini Jasmine, because they're very ingratiating, right? And then basically try and scheme how to get into the daughter's pants by singing songs. And then it gets a bit confusing when she leaves a note for them, because I thought this was going to be I thought this was going to be a trick to get them out the house, like, meet me at 1 a.m. or something like that, and then I don't understand what happened with that. I thought she was going to trick them into doing something disgraceful, and then the father would kick them out, right? But that's
Whereas
not
my wife thought that was like that wasn't in the note at all, because they can't read the note, and she thought it was the housemaid who was putting them up to it.
Yes,
but I suspect that actually she did write. I think it's actually in the letter. I think she did invite one of the visitor.
Yeah, I think that's a real thing. I think, but what's weird is that she's not pissed off that she got.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
yeah.
Because I thought she was annoyed with them, and the progression from annoyed with them to charmed is very quick. Yeah. Just when they sing that song, I guess.
Well, she does hear P. Ramley singing, and that's got to be
right.
You know.
But we'll get to the housemaid and her little secret in a minute, just to get Darren already. I'm going to let him do that, because look at him. Look at his little smiley face. He can't wait. Anyway,
I've even looked up a bit of trivia.
Oh, nice!
Excellent.
I've got a good little fact about that character.
Anyway, then there's a bit of business when they decide to go and enroll at this local school. Number one, because they have to learn how to read properly, and two, turns out the daughter works there as well, right? She's not just a
and it's because they can't say the mantra. There's a mantra that's part of their Silat learning that they.
There's a bunch of Oji-sans who at the school who have a whole comedy routine, which is kind of peculiar and strange. And the guy with his open mouth, he has to close it so flies don't go in, and that was quite funny. But also at the same time, they do follow through with learning the Silat from the father, and then they have to go through some kind of weird. Do they have to like conjure up a spirit or something?
It's like a meditation-y thing, though, isn't it? Isn't it just like a meditation they have to do?
And there's a super my favorite scene in the film, I think, strange, surreal scene where
second favorite for me.
when one of them does manage to rise up.
Oh yeah.
And then he gets all the bodies in a local graveyard to come out of their graves and dance to a bit of Hawaiian guitar.
That is
And-
amazing.
And
That
one of
seems
them
amazing.
seems to be an ape man or something.
Well, no, I'll tell you what that was. That's the Pontianak makeup.
It is.
That's the Pontianak mask.
Math. Yeah.
Do you
Yeah, I
think it was
recognise it
supposed
too.
to be the Pontianak?
Must have been.
Yeah, it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because like the first person who shows up, the first player that shows up looks like Screaming Jay Hawkins
Yes.
in the full like bone voodoo makeup kind of thing.
But
And
anyway,
then a lot of
that scene was properly like, what the fuck's going on now?
that was great.
That was great. And
I quite like the guy who was at the bottom of the well getting shit dumped on him as well.
Oh,
I mean, that's
yeah.
very lowbrow humor, but
yeah, that made me laugh as well.
No. I mean, the graveyard scene is worth the price of entry alone.
Yes.
It's worth watching an hour and a half of the film
Yeah,
to get to that,
yeah.
just to get to that.
And I think it wouldn't really work out of context. You have to sit through the whole film. If you just take it out of context, I don't think it really works. You have to have been with it and then hang on now.
what's happening?
Because and we'll get to Darren's favorite, but it's second in surrealism to that, right? But luckily, it turns out it's lucky that they are learning still that as well, because those fuckers from the wharf turn up.
Well, that thread kind of does go through the whole movie. They were always vaguely aware that the wharf guys and their sketchy boss is kind of...
Yeah, there's skirmishes, isn't there? Because they turn up at the school beforehand.
But the big one is when they kidnap the 15-year-old girl, it turns out. Yeah. And
yes.
and again, there's a big long scrap at the end, right? There's a long scrapping scene. So
which is a good fight, actually.
yeah, it's not bad.
Looking at the period, and looks like there's actual like silat in it.
Right, right.
You know, it looks. You know, it's interesting to watch. You know, it's a decent fight.
Yes, and so that's about the size of the main kind of thrust of the a couple of three likable underdogs eventually save the day, right? But Darren, there's an extra bonus in this film, isn't there? Why don't you tell us all about it?
So there's a couple of side characters in this film. So as part of the household, you know, Rose's household and Musta's household, you've got the mum and you've got Musta and you've got Rose's daughter, but you've also got, and I'm not sure if she's a maid or possibly like the auntie or the sister.
I think she might be a maid, I think.
Yeah, I thought she might be a maid. So anyway, the maid is in love, and she's got a picture of her true love that comes alive.
Yep.
And the picture is from an actor we've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a picture from what's the film called?
Oh,
Pusaka Pontianak, is it?
Pusaka Pontianak, yeah.
Pusaka Pontianak.
Yeah.
And you may remember that we all had a favourite character out of that film, and it's played by Ibrahim Pendek.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Who before I go into who he is and what his specialities are, I want to give you my trivia.
Okay, we should just illustrate, in case people don't know, we previously saw him as Ringo Starr, basically.
That's it. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah. So anyway, if you want to know who the first Indonesian actor to appear in a Hollywood film is ever, then it is Ibrahim Pendek.
Is that
really?
right? Ah.
Yeah, he appeared in a film called The Spiral Road in 1962 alongside Rock Hudson.
Wow.
Well,
And for those who don't know, Ibrahim Pendek, aka the little man from Pusaka Pontianak.
Yes.
He was a diminutive fellow, but is excellent, and he was my favourite after that.
Yes, he literally kind of moves about inside the. He actually comes out the photo at one point, doesn't he?
Yeah.
At one point, yes. It says untie his lady love.
Yes, and there's another running joke as well involving him, which is people saying, "Don't be angry, don't be angry."
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that either,
No.
but no, he's a lovely little man, and he's got fantastic, well, amazing skills. Really, he can come to life in a photograph, and there's a bit of fourth wall breaking as well, isn't there? When
yes, right, yes, that's what that whole
turn to
scene.
the audience and they say, "Why don't you ask that lot out there?"
Exactly. Yeah. No, it's good. No, it's genuinely good stuff, and I'm not even being ironic.
No.
No,
it could come out of an episode of The Young Ones.
Yeah, or
entire scene.
Or a Black Soup, Marx Brothers Anarchy kind of thing, right? It's but it's interesting that it's not like that all the way through. It's not like a Hellzapoppin kind of film or something. It's sparingly used.
Super weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a weird kind of mix of something a bit more comfortable. I don't know what the right phrase is. Something a bit more gentle, like you expect a bit of light-hearted sitcom level entertainment, and then all of a sudden, someone raising the dead from a graveyard and the living midget photo, and
and that just comes out of fucking nowhere. Because that's like part of their initiation, isn't it? So in order to become qualified silat practitioners or whatever, then they have to go out into the graveyard, or actually one of them has to go to a haunted house, one of them has to go to the graveyard, and one has to go down a well. And
it's also quite funny, the graveyard bit I forgot to mention as well, when the monsters or whatever rise and follow one of our characters. When he gets inside the house, he goes, just Japanese devils.
Yes,
that was weird.
But the gag
kind of
is
failed wartime gag or something.
Somebody says, because he says banzai.
right.
But the gag with that is it's the Pink Panther thing. It's the boy who cried wolf thing, isn't it? It's you have to go out into these scary locations and you have to stay there, and you're not allowed to move, even no matter what happens. Stuff's going to happen, but you have to stay put and do your mantra.
Right.
Otherwise, you won't be able to be qualified to be a silat master or whatever the hell it is.
Right.
And then Rose gets kidnapped, and then Rose and the master come and beg them to help, and they say, no, I can't move because it's my initiation. So that's the bit,
goes on a long time.
That is a very, very long gag.
As are all
kind of
the
long
gags.
gags.
Yeah. Yes, I do like the fact that over and over again they decide that they're going to remount each gag 3 times for each of our 3 leads. There's the gag where each of them pretends to sleepwalk and to leave the room to go meet up with Rose, and then gets caught by the other 2. And it's a very slight variation each time. The only one that made me laugh was the ripping the pants gag. Not because it was good, but because the last time the gag was a different gag. Right, the first 2 times they're doing silat, they do legitimately rip their pants. They're going to get them mended by Rose, and then the last guy just rips a really loud fart that makes it sound as though he's. And then the fact that they went the extra step of having her sniff the crotch of his pants and be revolted by the farty stench,
and says like, "You filthy man" or something.
That was like, okay, yep. That's comedy gold.
I have to say, so this is an odd one as well. So with all that in mind, I have to say I had quite a good time. Surprisingly, I didn't get bored. I thought this is going to be a bit of a chore at 105 minutes, but I have to admit something about its weird time stretching kind of put a spell on me a little bit and dragged me into its tempo, and I was quite taken with, even though I wouldn't exactly call it hilarious, as apparently it's supposed to be, but I kind of enjoyed watching it, and I think I would watch another BUJANG LAPOK film, which I didn't expect. I thought this would just be, pure research and I wouldn't get anything out of it, but I kind of get the appeal a little bit. I didn't expect to actually come out, with an interest in BUJANG LAPOK, but I have to admit I do.
I feel the same. I against my better judgment, I enjoyed it. I liked it. You know, and there's nothing entirely logical within me that tells me why I enjoyed it. You know, because a lot of the stuff goes on too long. Some of it's a bit tedious. Not a lot of it is hilarious. And yeah, okay, there's the cool graveyard bit and, you know, some okay comedy bits, but, you know, it's not exactly comedy gold, is it? You know, but it was just seemed to be interesting and cozy, you know.
Yes.
It's quite quaint and cozy.
Yeah, there's something comforting about these characters and something comforting about the place. And you know, that's the other thing I wrote down, is that there's a because I mentioned I wrote it down when we did the other P. Ramlee film. There's a sense of place in all of P. Ramlee's films that's really palpable. Like I feel like I'm getting closer. I mean, maybe it's complete bullshit, but I feel like I'm getting closer to Malaysia than maybe I feel like I'm getting close to other countries. And when I watch movies from other countries, there's something about the naturalness, and like even just the fact that Ramlee, and I guess this is a good connection to make, because I think we might do one of the other movies, right? The one that's about Standing Man, which is about the Malay film industry, but part of like the fact that he even wears the sarong, right? Like P. Ramlee does. Like he doesn't, you know, there's a real feeling of like cultural pride and just like it's Malaysian.
But it's for a Malaysian audience, surely. I mean, they're not, presumably, apart from export to the very small diaspora, or presumably very small diaspora of Malaysian people abroad. Then presumably this is solely for a domestic audience. So yes,
right. Although I guess
very
Ramlee,
Malaysian, but is it
Ramlee
deliberately Malaysian?
I doubt he had a big audience in North America or Europe, but he does seem to have had a wider audience, thus, you know, other than Malaysia. It sounds like at one point, basically, Shaw was like, just cut him a blank check. This guy's a genius. Like whatever he does is going to make us money. And I don't think that would have been just in that Malaysian.
Probably Indonesia as well, at least.
Yeah,
I'm guessing. And I'm wondering as well, the practice might have been, and again, because this period of time in history is a bit murky to us, and we don't, it's very opaque and difficult to figure out. I'm wondering if there might have been the practice of filming the same film in several different languages and then sending them out to different territories. So there might have been, you know, an alternate version of the BUJANG LAPOK films, for example, or something like that. But
presumably in local-ish territories.
Yeah,
so, Thailand, Indonesia.
Yes, yeah, no, I'm not
not for worldwide export.
No, certainly not.
Yeah.
I would be surprised to learn of a French BUJANG LAPOK fan club or something like that.
Yeah. And much the way, the Spanish Dracula, from the 30s,
Yeah. Well, and a practice they still do to this day.
Yeah.
In India, they will shoot the same film 2 or 3 different times, one in Hindi, one in Telugu, and in whatever Marathi.
Yeah.
Because I guess it's, I don't know, for whatever reason, it's more commercially viable to do it that way than just do one and dub it, because then you can localize it. So the one version has this actor, another one has that actor. Or I'm hoping that we'll find out more as we go along. Because even thus far, even only having watched a handful of films, and it's not as if we've done hard research or anything. We've already learned some stuff, right? I mean, for one, we don't know that much about him, but at least we know there was a giant called P. Ramlee at one point. That's something we didn't know before.
And at the other end of the spectrum, there was a little man.
Yes. And he was in a film with Rock Hudson.
Exactly.
I wonder if
first Malaysian actor in Hollywood.
If they got on well. I'm gonna try and track down that film.
It must be available. Yeah, it must be available. Yeah. But yeah, no, what I'm enjoying about this as well, this process, is, because I might have seen a Malaysian film before this. I don't know. You know, it wouldn't have been necessarily on my radar, and I'm sure I would have come across the modern Pontianak films, you know, at some point in the future. But you know, Malaysian cinemas kind of before this point not on my radar at all, impenetrable, and I had no interest in it. But just delving into this and actually getting in the groove of Malaysian cinema via Shaw Brothers, you know, it's a unique cinema. You know, it's not like anything else really. You know, it's related to Bollywood, it's related to Hong Kong via, or Singapore via Shanghai, sorry, via Shaw Brothers, but it's neither. You know, it's very much its own cinema. It's unique to itself, I think. You know, and it's really nice to get in the groove and to get in the rhythm, because you know, as we've spoken here and in the past about the other Malay films we've done, they have a different rhythm. They have different sorts of running times. The timing is different, and you know, plot structures weird. So it's really, really fascinating just to get into, you know, a completely new, to me anyway, a completely new kind of cinema.
Yeah, because the frame of references that's what's, you know, they're not drawing necessarily from the same set of references that we're used to, right? It's like the first time you realize that, for example, indigenous North Americans have an entirely different set of constellations, because of course they do, because why would they have made them into the same ones that the Romans and Greeks made them into, right? And you're like, oh yeah, but when you grow up being told that that's Ursus and that's, you know, the Big Dipper and whatever, you make these assumptions about, well, yeah, of course everyone in the world knows this, you know, Eurocentric thing. And in the same way, yeah, you know, when we're watching, like, I'm still like in Oily Maniac, the, you know, Curse of the Oily Maniac, that whole scene where he goes to some version of heaven or whatever it is, the afterlife, and comes back, like, what is that all about? What mythology? What? It's
all, yeah, because it's all new.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, yes, we shall be making more discoveries, hopefully, in the next episode and onwards of Ellipses in ShawScope. But I think that's us for today, lads. So yeah, until next time, cheerio. I'm Clive Davis. He's
Darren Jones.
And I am Nick Sheehan.
You almost forgot your own name there, Nick.
I did for a moment, yes, I panicked.
Ah!
Give a little man a great big hand.